Hello and welcome to Maha Uncensored. I'm Jeff Hayes. There is no treatment or drug that can begin to rival your own body. From the way your skin repairs itself to the way your bones regrow after a break. What if we could tap into this ability and harness it to heal injuries, cure pain, restore the ability to walk, even defeat aging itself? That is the promise of stem cells. For decades now, stem cells have been the subject of so much controversy and misinformation. Today, we're going to find out why that is and why so many Americans still travel thousands of miles to seek out the promise of regeneration. This is Stem Cells Part 1, The Miracle of Self-Repair.
I will protect stem cell research. Stem cell research today can be done on umbilical cords, and you don't need fetal tissue.
Full-length rotator cuff tear in my shoulder, it completely fixed it.
But I stood up with no pain in my spine for the first time in 14 years.
You've had a catastrophic neck injury, you're paralyzed from the neck down. We heard about the Mayo stem cell trial.
And at that point, it was game on.
All of a sudden, I could wiggle my toes, my feet, my arms a little bit.
It was a Saturday. They were going cliff jumping. It was a 60-foot cliff into the water. They crossed over, they had to kind of swim over to where they were, and I stayed over there to film it. I watched them go up, and I thought they were going to jump off where I saw other people jumping off, and they went past that, they're at the top, and I'm like, oh no, that does not look good from where they're gonna jump.
What could possibly go wrong? You know, I mean, you're jumping into the water. Looking down over the cliff, there was a bluff that you couldn't really see the landing. So I was relying on secondhand information on where exactly I had to jump. And once you started running down the face of that rock or take 2 steps, there was no turning back.
I was kind of in a state of like, they can't do this.
As I'm coming over, I'm like, oh, I might not make it. And the next thought was, I could die.
And then I'm like looking at my phone, trying to figure that out. And then I heard splash. So he literally fell 50 feet and hit rock. Shattered his calcaneus, because that hit first. Then he hit on his sacrum, his butt, and then the force went up his spine. 2 vertebrae just exploded. He should have been dead.
Trying to tread water, I'm trying to grab onto the cliff face, and it's not good. I knew I wasn't gonna make it. But I'm saying, like, my legs, like, they weren't working. So I was trying to, like, conserve energy. A boat happens to pull around, and they realize, like, I'm starting to drown. Somebody at the boat jumps in and pulls me onto the boat. At this point, every minute that goes by, in terms of my mobility, gets less and less and less and less. I get up on one arm, I like point.
Then I heard, take him over there, his father's a doctor. And I'm like, oh no. So he pulls up in the boat, he's on the back of the boat. And I could see his color, I could see his face, it wasn't good.
Get to the hospital and they did a CT scan and they looked at my back and they were like, oh my gosh, like this is way worse than we thought.
No one could understand how he lived that. He should have definitely been paralyzed. So the first miracle was he wasn't dead. Second miracle was the pieces of the spinal cord moved away from the cord.
It wasn't like, do you want to do surgery? It was like, here's what we're doing, here's the plan. I was like drugged up and everything, but I was like, who says I need surgery?
They wanted to fuse 6 vertebrae minimal with hardware that would have been in his back for life.
Okay, so let's talk through this. What does it look like if I don't get surgery? Well, you could not walk for 15 weeks. You know, that's even if you'd be able to walk after 15 weeks.
I said, could I just have a couple days to research this, you know? And they were like, well, you have that anyway because we have to wait for the inflammation to come down.
I was just trying to understand, right? Give me the options, let's talk this through and let's look at pros and cons of each. And it was like, how dare you? This is what we do every day. And I'm like, but this is like my life and I believe is the chance for me to heal, I want to take that chance. They couldn't even understand this mindset.
In that time, I didn't sleep very much, but I found 2 studies that showed with this injury, if all of the ligaments were ruptured, then the surgery was the only way to go for a positive outcome. But if there was even one of the main ligaments that were still attached, then doing nothing actually worked better.
And it came down to the doctor saying, like, all your ligaments are ruptured and there's no way you're gonna be able to heal without the surgery.
They just assumed all the ligaments were ruptured because of the magnitude of the injury. And so they did the MRI and one of the main ligaments was still intact. He opted out of the surgery, which he was doing anyway, but the surgeon was very angry.
They said, we'll see you back here in 2 weeks and then we'll see if it's fused. And if it's not fused, you're gonna need surgery. I said, game on. And then we just went full into all the biohacks that we could that we knew drove healing.
We had something called tissue regenerative therapy, which is a kind of a shock wave. We were doing red light therapy. I was dragging them outside in the sun and, of course, giving them perfect nutrition. Then we took them to Dr. Harry Adelson, who utilized Daniel's own stem cells.
In certain cases, it's worth trying regenerative medicine first, see if it helps, and if it doesn't, you can always have surgery. Because the thing is, you can always have surgery, you just can't unhave it.
He tapped his bone marrow, took his own stem cells, and then he injected it all the way down every vertebral body into the discs that, there weren't even discs there. I mean, these bones just exploded, but he just put it around those areas. He was up within 2 weeks, and I was telling him, get back down. So they said, we need another x-ray after 2 months, I think it was, just to see if it's healing right. They took that x-ray, and they were like stunned.
And they look at the x-rays and they're like, well, we were wrong, it fused.
They're looking at the x-ray and he's like, yeah, you're healed, you're fine. On the way out, she said, I have to tell you that I was a doubter as well. I thought y'all were crazy, but that's amazing.
We have stem cells in every tissue in our body, and their job is to maintain the health of their microenvironment. They recognize when damage has occurred, and then they exert what's called the paracrine effect. And what that is it's a combination of actions. They fight invading microbes, they decrease inflammation in the area, and they signal the damaged tissue to go into healing mode.
Japanese doctors began to take bone marrow out of healthy people and giving it to irradiated patients. And a lot of them ended up getting well.
It turns out that fat is actually loaded with stem cells. By doing these fat transfer procedures, these doctors were actually working with stem cells before we ever knew it.
So we take a small amount of fat from the belly, and those are mesenchymal stem cells. Those cells are then expanded in a petri dish in a culture setting. Once the cells expand out to 100 million cells, they are then injected into the patient's lumbar spine. And the cells then migrate to the highest area of inflammation, their area of spinal cord injury.
It essentially tricks your body into thinking that you've had this new acute injury, but there's been no tissue insult. So you get all the benefit of a healing response without actually having been injured.
There's many people going outside the United States to get these treatments done. The clinics have specific regulations, regulated by basically informed consent, regulated by a license to be able, for instance, to culture expand or grow cells. Some people are just going over there, they get treated, and you'll hear everybody comes back, I feel great. You'll also hear some cases of it did nothing. And then there's also been some sad cases of individuals that have gone over there and gotten sick and gotten worse. So there is those cases too. And it's because people are coming to the juncture of, I have nothing that I can do here in the United States, or I've exhausted a lot of things, there's nowhere else I can do. Let me go outside the United States and get a treatment. And in many instances, they've improved their quality of life. I think at some juncture, the public gets tired of, I'm trying to get healthier and I'm not healthier. Or I should have the opportunity to take the risk because it's my body. That's why people are leaving the United States and paying a lot of money to do it.
I had the vaccine and got COVID and then got long COVID to the point where I was in a wheelchair and I couldn't walk and I was in so much pain and I was trying a lot of different things, going to a lot of different doctors, being dismissed left and right. Looked online and found that there was stem cells being used to help treat long COVID patients, and it was hopeful. I thought, well, instead of traveling to Mexico to get this done, why not just make it available here in Utah? So I got a group together and we all discussed what we can do legislation-wise, and so we came up with the SB 199, and I put in my bill that it's ethical sources of stem cells, placental stem cells from healthy moms and babies that have been screened. It's the afterbirth. I excluded in there that no fetuses or embryos from abortions would be used. And it passed unanimously both in the House and the Senate.
I met Holly after the passage of SB 199 and the enactment of the new law. Problem is when you talk about therapeutics that our bodies are actually making, and if you're isolating them from the human body in a way that keeps their fidelity, there's no risk associated with it.
Your body has the capabilities to repair itself. It just needs the proper tools. And I found the right tools to get my body as healthy as I can. People come from other states into Utah to have treatments done because of the bill, and gives them the opportunity to get better.
So why does the FDA have an interest in regulating something that biology is already administering as a therapy? I understand not wanting it to be manufactured in a way that causes harm or introduces contaminants, but these stem cell products have been shown to be helpful for a subsection of the population. Why wouldn't you allow healthcare practitioners and stem cell providers, for that matter, to talk about the good that these can bring?
Let's help each other to try to make this possible. And there's thousands of us that want to help him, and he's our voice. And I'm just grateful that he's willing to stand up and say the things that need to be said and do the things that are in the best interests of we the people.
Good, we're gonna make America healthy again, you know?
Holly at the time mentioned that Utah was just the first step. We needed to be in front of legislatures all over the country. A movement like Make America Healthy Again is exactly what we need in order to get massive adoption of helpful legislation and regulation.
My mother was a marathon runner and ran 6 miles every single day. In 2009, as a late 50-year-old, my mom was told that she was gonna have to have a total hip replacement. She's like, no way, like I can't do that. I'm gonna lose my life as I know it. So my dad went to Tom Grogan, who was gonna do her hip replacement, and said, hey Tom, why don't you try and put these stem cells in her hip? And he goes, you're crazy, like I'm not gonna do that, no way. He goes, come on, just give it a try. He put stem cells in my mom's hip back in 2009. My mom hasn't had a hip replacement since. She does SoulCycle, Peloton, works out 6 days a week, super active. She has her entire life and didn't have to have that hip replacement. That's when it started clicking for my father, who basically said, hey, these stem cells are really cool. This my patient's own cells. I can get them from their own fat tissue that they don't need, and it's helping them to get better. We should explore this. He brought in some of the top orthopedic surgeons, some of the top interventional radiologists, cardiologists, neurologists, and neurosurgeons. And he had the whole team with Dr. Lander to basically investigate how to use your own stem cells to heal naturally.
Over the last 5 years, myself and my partner, Dr. Elliot Lander, developed the Cell Surgical Network. We started out as a couple guys working with these cells that are unspecialized and can differentiate and even replicate, and so they can turn into the parts that we need to replace.
They set up these protocols and they started doing this work back in 2010. And the results were fantastic. I mean, they were getting some really, really exciting things. But when people have pain and you can help them get out of pain, that's huge.
There's two ways to approach stem cell therapy in the United States. One is using stem cells from your own body. That's either using bone marrow or fat, isolating or concentrating the stem cells from a person's own body and using them therapeutically. The other way is using human cellular tissue products, which is usually from umbilical cord.
I will most likely receive a warning letter in retaliation for speaking about this, because the FDA is trying to win through the isolation of communication and preventing the public from knowing their own legal rights, preventing the medical practitioners from knowing their own legal rights as it revolves around tissue banking. Tissue banking is the collection and processing of human tissue, skin, eyes, bones, birth tissue, and processed in a way that it is made free of immune rejection and able to be transplanted into a human recipient. The tissue banking industry was actually founded as we know it in 1949 by the Navy. The Navy was looking for a way to fill voids and defects in wounded soldiers and veterans. At this time, there was a great amount of innovation that was happening. The FDA was working together with the industry, and there was a great deal of communication that was occurring. In 2017, a major conflict happens. The FDA started to regulate the tissue banking industry differently. What they did is they started regulating the industry on a case-by-case basis and never explaining the rationale scientifically or regulatorily how they were regulating these companies. Since May 2021, 26 warning letters have come out to birth tissue manufacturers specifically, and before 2019, there were less than 6. What really happens is that the FDA has changed its viewpoint on tissue banking overnight without having any conversation with the industry and going after them with clear abuse of power.
Now, everyone's more than happy to have the FDA pull a drug off the shelf when it causes cancer, but everyone gets really upset when the FDA won't allow doctors to talk about a potential drug or a medicine or a therapeutic in a way that the doctor knows or believes is accurate, but the FDA hasn't signed off on yet. I mean, where do umbilical cord stem cells come from? They're produced in the placental tissues. This is found in the vein of the umbilical cord, and it's flowing into the fetus. And in the case of the umbilical cord artery, it's flowing back to the mother. So here you have a growing fetus, a growing baby, and its mother receiving stem cell therapy during gestation. And what do? They deliver growth factors and signaling molecules that are involved in all kinds of developmental processes. So why does the FDA have an interest in regulating that? Something that biology is already doing, and the FDA wants to step in and make sure that it's not harmful?
The FDA did not want birth tissue to be a tissue. It wanted it to be a drug. The FDA was created to protect the public from drugs, medical devices, and food. There is nothing in there about tissue. It has no business doing that. So what's the real issue? In September of 2021, months after the new enforcement in May of 2021 by the FDA, Pfizer came out and said they're going to develop Wharton's jelly drug. How is that possible? It is my belief that the FDA is attempting to hand over the birth tissue industry to Big Pharma. When the industry of tissue banking provides $0, while Big Pharma makes up 50% of their budget, it is very hard to say that that motive may not be money. Tissue banking has consistently worked since 2025, since 1993. So why are they changing the rules now? Well, first of all, they can't. They're not allowed legally to change the interpretation of the rules and regs as written. So as of today, birth tissue is still legally allowed to be used by physicians and medical practitioners, but for some reason, in the late 2000s, the FDA is adamant about narrowing the scope of the interpretation of these regulations with no scientific or regulatory rationale, only because they want to control it. This year, the insurance carriers have tried to pass a new rule that prevents over 180 skin substitutes and burn grafts from getting insurance coverage. Do you know who's going to suffer? It's going to be veterans, and it's going to be classes of low income, classes that rely on Medicare. That is the greatest irony of what's happening. Something formed and founded by the military is no longer going to give access to the military.
What is not legal in the United States is we are not able to culture expand these cells. We're not able to grow them out in a laboratory. But when we're using human cellular tissue products, as defined by the 361 clause by the FDA, that is legal if it is done in the proper method. There are people who are doing it wrong, and they do get into trouble.
It's the Wild West of medicine. Stem cell clinics targeting vulnerable patients with misleading ads that claim to treat everything from joint pain to diseases that have no cure.
And that is incredibly sensationalized. There's a lot of negative coverage about these people who are selling snake oil, essentially. While I was at naturopathic school, I was fanatical about rock climbing, and I had a shoulder injury. And I went to a surgeon, and he said, there's basically two options. I can put a scope in your shoulder, and I can cut away that piece of cartilage. And it's gonna give you short-term relief, but it's probably gonna give you problems later in life. Alternately, I can do a steroid injection, which similarly is probably gonna give you short-term relief, but it's going to give you problems later in life. And I thought, those are terrible options. Like, there's gotta be something else. So I started asking around kind of the naturopathic community, and I found out about prolotherapy, also called regenerative injection therapy. We did prolotherapy on my shoulder, and it resulted in a complete cure. And I knew that's what was going to be my career. And I did that for a period of years, and then platelet-rich plasma came along. Exactly the same concept, except now we're using a person's own blood. Concentrate down the blood platelets, which are responsible for triggering a healing response. Exactly the same concept as regenerative injection therapy, but using a biologic, and it worked so much better. Something that I get asked a lot is which is superior, using stem cells from your own body or using cell and tissue products from umbilical cord. One of the things that's really important to keep in mind, whether we're talking about using autologous stem cells, which is from your own body, or allogeneic stem cells, which is from donated tissues, in neither case do those cells actually take up residence in your body. So this whole concept of, well, does there need to be any sort of like tissue matching? No, there doesn't, for two reasons. One is these cells are immunoprivileged, meaning they don't elicit immune responses. So they exert their effect, and then they don't then divide and become part of you.
I'm gonna be 60 this year. Injuries that I had early on from sport injuries, my neck, my back, my knee, started really affecting my life to the point where it was either surgery or do something else. I dove deep into research about stem cells because I wasn't going to get surgery unless it was absolutely necessary. I walked into Dr. Harry Adelson's clinic, and that was my first experience with stem cells. And I can tell you, from that day forth, my life changed. It made a massive difference in my back, made a massive difference in my neck and my knee. There's things that we start to feel our age, and no doubt our joints are one of those things. And I can tell you, I feel better at 60, especially my joints, which make you feel old when they start going, than I did in my late 40s and 50s.
We should be treating aging as a disease because everybody now wants to live to 70, 80, 90 years of age, but continuing to hike, to being able to not be in pain. Those are things that science and medicine have to figure out. We do a significant amount of work with a natural killer cell. And a natural killer cell is part of your innate or immediate immune response. It is part of taking care of three things. One, a mutated cell. A natural killer cell can pick that up, remove it. That's one of its primary functions. Two, a virus. The immune system has to take care of what it's supposed to do. But at some juncture, the immune system becomes tired. And just like every cell in your body, as we age, they get older too. They don't function as well. Lastly, the NK cell is in charge of a senescent cell. Senescent is basically a cell you can call it a zombie cell. It's a cell that occupies space, causes havoc. Simple description of it is basically gray hair, wrinkles in the skin. These are all aspects of aging. Every cell in your body has a finite amount of divisions. When it stops dividing, it basically just occupies space, causes havoc to the system. meaning it releases signals around and wants everything around it to become as old as it is. The NK cell is in charge of removing this. But the problem is as you age, the NK cell ages too, and it no longer is what we call a natural killer. So if you can take a natural killer cell, activate it, put it back in, we actually have evidence that we can reduce the senescence in the immune system. And an NK cell, when you remove something that's bad, forces the bone marrow to come out and produce fresh progeny that are stronger fighters to keep the immune system healthy. We can actually isolate natural killer cells from an individual. We can activate them, grow them up to a younger state, and make them killers again, and then infuse them back in, and the concept is to remove immunosenescence. Senescence happens on skin, senescence happens in an organ, senescence happens in the immune system. So our focus is just right now, let me get your immune system healthy, because if I get your immune system healthy, secondarily, I'm gonna improve other things, your organs and everything else.
The problem is we're so enamored with MRI that we think, oh, well, just look at the MRI, it'll tell you what's wrong. The reality is, if you take 100 people with no low back pain and you do MRIs on them, 60% of them are gonna have abnormalities on MRI. Alternately, you can take people with lots of back pain and maybe they do or do not have a corresponding MRI that shows what's wrong. So that sort of calls into question what's causing the pain. And what people in the field of regenerative medicine believe what's causing the pain is changes in the microscopic tissue. Connective tissue is this miracle fabric. It stretches just the right amount in each direction. It has just the right amount of blood flow bringing nutrients to the area and metabolic waste away. Well, when you have suboptimal healing, that miracle fabric loses its miracle properties. It stretches too much in one direction and not enough in others. It grows these irregularly formed blood vessels, so now you can't bring oxygen to the tissue and metabolic waste away. So what regenerative medicine works best for are people with these sort of nondescript pain syndromes. If somebody has an obvious huge herniating disc and they've got pain shooting down their leg, well, that person probably needs surgery. But if they've got this sort of nondescript MR and they've got this, we call it non-specific back pain, their back just hurts, or especially if right smack in the middle of their back, it hurts when they're bending forward, that's probably a lumbar disc. And that's something that it may not be herniated. Similarly with a post-whiplash syndrome, where their entire neck just hurts. That is from these changes in the microscopic connective tissue. Well, one of the things that we know that regenerative medicine does and stem cells do, one of the areas in medicine where they've been the best studied is in wound care. Well, wound care is a very interesting thing to study because you have this non-healing ulcer and you perform an intervention and then either it goes away or it doesn't. It's very objective, it's very simple to measure the benefit. What is chronic pain but a form of a non-healing wound? You've had this change in the microscopic anatomy of your tissue that will not get better. So we take either stem cells from your own body or we take these human cellular tissue products from umbilical cord, we place it in the area, it launches this healing cascade, normalizes the health of that microscopic connective tissue, and now a person has less pain, more function, better quality of life. But here's the weird thing, their MRI might look exactly the same.
They're developing new approaches using stem cells, repairing damaged and aging tissue for neurodegenerative diseases.
We've had patients who were unable to speak, now speaking full sentences and telling us about the day that they were injured.
One of the main issues with neurodegenerative disease is systemic inflammation. And one of the things that we know that stem cells do through the paracrine effect is dramatically decrease inflammation throughout the entire system.
People always say it's impossible for stem cells to get to the brain. That one, there's a blood-brain barrier. Two, they get stuck in the lungs. When we performed histology, we were able to go look in their brain right in the site of injury. We found stem cells all over the site of injury in their brain. And we were able to get their motor skills back to baseline overnight. So there are huge anti-inflammatory effects that these cells have, and they can be reparative and restorative. We have this database, we track our patients for out to 5 years. 82.7% of our patients were responding positively. When you look at our pain scores over a 2 to 5 year period, there's a negative decline for that 2 to 5 year period. And that's what regenerative medicine and stem cell therapy is all about. We're not just trying to mask pain.
When I woke up, I said, wow. I'm thinking, you were so bad that just them going into that C4 area and putting the actual stem cells in elevated that disc enough to take whatever pressure that's been there for that long, and that's only going to grow. They're going to do their job. It's been a miracle.
Not going to do Botox. My wife has never done Botox, but what we do is stem cells and exosomes. And I believe that is the future. It has a healing effect in what is aging, the collagen, the elastin, our skin. And I know this, that it really does make a difference in how you look. Even just 1 or 2 treatments of your face can absolutely make an impact that people look at you right away and go, oh, what are you doing?
When you inject stem cells or human cellular tissue products from umbilical cord into skin, it rejuvenates the skin in a way that none of those other things do, because it actually grows new collagen fibers and improves the microcirculation of that tissue.
What we're doing here is primarily healing injuries, and that's the first time I think that's ever happened in modern medicine. Because we're actually putting the cells that will do the repair and do the healing. When you go to your doctor normally, you break your bone. They're not healing the bone. They're setting the bone, casting it, and hoping for the body to do the healing and repair itself. If you get bronchitis, you get an antibiotic to clear out the bacterial infection. But all the damage that's been done to your lungs, you then require your body to come and heal that tissue naturally, and that takes time. Stem cells are the healing source, and this is really revolutionary in medicine, and the fact that they're your own cells with your own DNA, and we can use those to get you better, it's incredibly rewarding, because you've got these problems that people have been working on for decades, and all of a sudden you come along with stem cells, and you're able to promote healing very quickly. So it's like showing up to the job site. Everyone's got a hammer and screwdriver, but you've got power tools.
Researchers, such as these at Mayo Clinic, push forward to make regenerative medicine a reality for patients searching for successful treatment and perhaps cures.
We're just so excited to have Robert Kennedy in office to be able to help us push this forward in getting and making America healthy again.
This is where the real miracle of Medellin begins. This is our hallway of hope. Typically, people find us because they're in pain and they're not finding solutions with their recommendations in the United States, typically. And so it's people that are thinking outside of the box. It's people that are not necessarily trusting their surgeons that they're getting the right advice, that they need to have surgery. I would say that medical survivorism is a fantastic way to describe it, because they're typically in the mindset to solve a problem that isn't being solved for them in their home jurisdiction. I mean, look, humans in general are survivors. You know, we find the way to survive. That's just part of what we do as a species. And, you know, when patients or people in general are in chronic pain or suffering from something that there either are no answers or they're getting the wrong answers. And I think as an American, we're getting a lot of wrong answers in the sense that our physicians are trained to prescribe surgery and drugs first, instead of being more proactive and prescribing things like regenerative medicine first, and then maybe try some of the surgery and drugs. Because the truth is our treatments can alleviate surgery, sometimes indefinitely, or at least prolong it in some cases, and we can get people off of pharmaceuticals in some cases forever. It's tragic the way that our system is working in reverse, and I set out to change that.
This is where we do all of our optimization therapies. This is very important, a very important component of our therapy because we prepare the patient. We have to prepare the body of the patient to have less inflammation, to be more clean, better detox, to prepare like the environment where we're going to be applying the cells so that they can have better results and that they can work much better. So in this area, the services that we provide, that we have here, it's cryotherapy, hyperbaric, ozone therapy, functional medicine consultation, different epigenetic types of tests. And this gives us a lot of information of what specific thing we're going to be doing to the patients. With our optimization therapies, we are preparing the patient to receive the stem cell therapies and all the regenerative medicine therapies that includes exosomes, secretomes, and stem cells. I was born in a doctor's family. My dad was a pediatrician, my mom is a gynecologist, and all my aunts and uncles and grandparents were doctors, so I come from a family of doctors. I'm the second daughter of 4. Since I was a little kid, I always wanted to cure people and animals. I'm an animal lover, but it was very clear for me that I wanted to be a doctor since very early ages. What I saw in my parents, they were really helping people. For example, my dad, as being a pediatrician, he was a very famous pediatrician here in Medellin, Colombia. Medicine was private and there was no insurance in the health system at that time, 30 or 40 years ago. It was not good. I saw my dad always giving consultations for free. I grew up seeing that all the patients, the parents of the kids were taking them gifts of whatever they could. So he got potatoes and things from the farm and interesting gifts that they were grateful because of what my dad was doing. They were trying to give something in exchange. That inspired me all the time to want to help people, to really be doing something different, to change people's life, but not in the traditional way. I have always been someone that I want to innovate, that I want to be ahead, that I consider myself that I think different or out of the box, and that even the training that I got at the university, my university is University CES, is one of the most important universities here in Colombia, and even that is a university very traditional. Where I got taught to traditional medicine, I was always out of the box. I got this from my dad also. He was a pediatrician, but at that time, 40, 50 years ago, he was already working in alternative medicine, so acupuncture and all the homeopathy. So imagine this alternative medicine 40 years ago. They were considered shamans. They were considering that this was not true. And I saw that he was mixing his specialty as pediatrician with alternative medicine when they were just starting at the very beginning, just like right now with regenerative medicine. So in regenerative medicine, what I see in my life is that actually I'm following his steps.
My name's Michaela. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 2, and then again with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 22. The first time I came down, we came down for just to get function back. I couldn't write my name with a pencil. I couldn't walk without pain. So we came down and I got injections, specific in my hands and my feet. We were gonna do the IV of stem cells the first time I came down, and now I'm down for my second time to get the IV.
Now we're going to go systemic because stem cells are very good modulating the immune system, and autoimmune conditions respond very good with this type of cells, that is the Wharton jelly mesenchymal stem cells.
After my local injections, I was able to walk around without pain for the first time in 2 years within 2 hours of getting the injections. And it took the United States 2 years to even diagnose me with rheumatoid arthritis, and they pushed me on a lot of pain medications that didn't work. And I came down here, and within 2 hours of getting the procedure that they gave me in my foot and in my hands, I was pretty much pain-free.
My name's Nancy. I'm Michaela's mom. So her life has been filled with challenges, and as a mom, watching her grow up with type 1 diabetes, always being the different kid, not being able to do some of the things that other kids could do, like a sleepover. I wouldn't let her go because no one else could manage her. And then watching her battle for 2 years with the US medical system to just get her a diagnosis, because all they wanted to do was say, it's your type 1 diabetes. Well, her A1C was phenomenal. She takes great care of herself. We both knew it was something more. The research that we did into what else is there, what can we do to give her a normal 22-year-old life. I watched my 22-year-old in the morning walk down the stairs like an 80-year-old, one step at a time. She couldn't write with a pen. To watch her go through that over 2 years, and then to see her smile come back in 2 hours after the local injections.
The treatment I got at BioAccelerator has really changed my life. I feel like I can finally go and live like a normal 22-year-old life.
That's the reason of why we're doing what we're doing, to help people, to change their life, to give them back quality of life, to help families. So it makes me very happy about it. I'm super passionate about what we do here, what we have, how we have set up all this. So happy and proud.
I've been coming here since it opened. I was the first patient. I actually know Eric personally, known him for like 20 years. I was traveling the world about 20 years ago. I was in Southeast Asia and some other places, looking for stem cell therapies and stem cell research companies. It was kind of what was up and coming. It wouldn't be allowed inside the United States back then. So I was patient one. What convinced me first is the laboratory protocols and the vertical integration of this facility. Differs a lot from virtually everything else you'll see. If you consider the fact that it actually has the lab on site with the scientists, they're performing all the things in a controlled environment, and then the stem cells move from the lab to your therapy zone all in the same day. That's something you don't see with 99% of any other stem cell clinic. That vertical integration for me was the laboratory protocol all the way to the patient therapy that was the convincing factor, and I said, yeah, sure, let me be patient one.
We like to use the term vertically integrated. Here we have everything in-house. So here from the collection of the cord, of the umbilical cord, all the processing, all the releases, all the quality controls inside the laboratory are right next to the clinic, so that we know that when the patient comes in and receives the stem cells, they're of the best quality possible. We are a research team dedicated to sourcing all the evidence, helping with the therapies, making sure that the protocols are up to date with the cell bank, always checking if the product can be improved. It all starts when we talk to the mothers, so the expecting mothers. We go through a lot of questionnaires and a lot of exclusion and inclusion criteria, because we have to make sure that the mother is healthy and the baby is also healthy for us to get a healthy umbilical cord.
We do a very strict process of selection of the best candidate to be able to find the best umbilical cord. Healthy moms, young moms, pregnancy completely normal during all the prenatal evaluations, pregnancies that end by C-section and that are going between the week 38 to 40, and those are some of the things that we have into consideration to collect a cord. So it's not that we process any cord, we choose the one that we consider is the ideal cord to have better cells, high potency, high quality. We decided to work with Wharton jelly mesenchymal stem cells. Those are the cells that you get from the tissue of the umbilical cord. Why? Because with this type of cells, they are already off the shelf. It doesn't have any ethical issue because it's the tissue, the perinatal tissues, the placenta, the amnio, and the umbilical cord that gets discharged. These cells are very potent. They grow very fast in the lab.
When we collect the umbilical cord, it is automatically transferred to the laboratory, and it is processing within the first 4 hours after collection. There we start harvesting the stem cells. This way we can start expanding them.
And that way we start babying them for maybe 2 to 3 months. The cell bank is the laboratory, it's right behind me. It's where we process, receive all the umbilical cords and process them and go through all the expansion process. So it's not just producing stem cells, but it's also making sure that they're of the best quality, and they go through all the standards, all the quality controls, all the releases that are needed, so that at the end we get a therapy product that can be put into a patient. Sometimes doctors just buy the stem cells. So you have a third-party laboratory that produces stem cells and you buy them, but you're not sure exactly what is happening with those stem cells and what happened before you receiving them. Here we know every step of the process, and we make sure that we are not only with the minimal standards, but we try to go a little bit above and beyond. So we not only check for what the ISCT, the International Society for Cell Therapy, asks for, but we try to do more. So we test for potency, we test for karyotyping, we test for senescence, we test for quality attributes that are not usually tested for. So we know that our product is very good and very potent. When you take stem cells from your own body, they already have a lot of aging going on. They have your own age, they have all the toxins and the changes that you have gone through your life. So in a sense, you're getting like a good product, but not the best.
We are controlling that process, and we're not depending on other companies that are selling this type of products. By being the clinic and having the clinic in the same facility, in the same floor as the lab, that allows us to coordinate the scheduling of the therapy with the preparation of the therapy, because viability is super important. We know that by every hour that go past, a 10% dies, and we know, for example, that after preparing the therapies, a 30-minute period from preparation of the cells and putting the cells in the syringe or in the saline bags, we are already there losing a 50%. So what we do is that we compensate that 50% by adding an additional 50% of what the patient has got, so that we can really guarantee that there's going to be a 100% of what the patient is paying for, and that those are going to be 100% of live cells. So the coordination between that is logistic and is not easy.
For many years, it has been a goal for the research to go more forward to look for answers about how the cells can improve the health of the people and of our patients. When you see someone crying because the traditional medicine didn't offer a response or a therapy for the disease or the condition or whatever, and then they found this kind of therapies and they prove it. When you see a patient coming back for more shots or for more therapies because the results in the first shot were amazing, and you see how they are happy and happier than before, taking the chance of going through the regenerative therapy, and the results are amazing. We have testimonies of many patients here in BioAccelerator and all around the world. You will never get those results with traditional medicine. Producing results is knowledge. We're changing lives because our therapies change the life of a patient in a few months, 12 months, 18 months. I saw one video today of a fighter. He was just training. He wasn't even fighting, he was just training, and he got an injury. And the benefits for him were even more beneficial because he comes here faster. And then after a few months, he was fully recovered after coming here in a rowing chair.
Let's go to that day. You're training for a fight. Tell us what happens.
To be honest, just a regular session like any other session. Everything was going great. You know, I had a big fight coming up, I was fighting for the belt and stuff. And it was like 15 minutes towards the end of the session, and we got doing some wrestling drills. Basically, my arm got trapped in against here, and the guy picked me up and suplexed me on my neck, and I couldn't post out because my arm was trapped, and just instantly snapped my neck, yeah.
Next morning, you're in the hospital. They tell you you're going to be a quadriplegic for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you don't know me. Here we are walking down the streets of Colombia.
At what point did the stem cell conversation come in?
I believe it was very early on, to be honest. You guys had reached out.
3 months later, 4 months later, you're in Medellin.
Which was like crazy because I literally left the hospital, spent one night in my own house, and then just went from there.
And did you know the sooner you can get the cells, the better you are?
100%.
Let's talk about the difference from a year and a half. And now we're walking on the same street.
Yeah,
I think you were rolling on.
Yeah, I was rolling down this street, yeah, I remember how weak I was at that time. I couldn't even use a regular wheelchair. Remember, it was the little electric one. Yeah, look, here I am now, back running. I couldn't believe the first time I came through the doors at Boyle because everybody was just so positive, you know, and I was like, what the hell, this is like a medical setting, but you're making me feel like a person. The stem cells play absolutely a monumental role.
He was just here 2 weeks ago, and we're walking around the same places that he was in a wheelchair and couldn't even roll himself around. Me and Eric grew up around the same area. We went to the same high school for a couple years, so we knew each other pretty well. He knew I was a diabetic, type 1. And he was like, hey, I'm opening a stem cell clinic in Medellin, Colombia. And I'm like, yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? I'm going, okay, let's see if this happens. 3 years later, he calls me, he says, hey, come down. You know, he knew I was working with athletes, so maybe bring down here. I said, hey, I want to try these first, let me know. So he brought me down, and immediately it cleaned up like my allergies, but I just felt better. You know, I was lowering my insulin. Now, it's not a cure for type 1, but it was lowering my insulin levels a little bit, and I could tell it was working. So at that point, I started bringing the athletes, like Chris Cyborg. Chris Cyborg's, she was a UFC champ. She's a 5-time world champion in MMA. Probably the greatest fighter, women's fighter of all time. She was the first person I brought down. Tony Hawk, to Warren Moon. Michael Bisping was just down here. Chito Vera, Brandon Moreno. Goldberg came down here for Goldberg's 58 years old. He was one of the best WWE wrestlers of all time. He's having his retirement match.
Bill Goldberg here with a little checkup on my bioaccelerator stem cell treatment. Went the beginning of February. It is now the end of June, about 2.5 weeks away from my retirement match, which was the reason behind me pulling the trigger on the stem cell treatment. I've had a number of friends go down. Every single one of them has had wonderful results, but I needed something really to push me to do it. Getting in the ring at 58 years old, that's what did it. I have a number of injuries, well documented throughout my career. Destroyed right shoulder, left knee, no meniscus, and I got some spine issues. So went down there, specifically went after those 3 areas. They all took extremely well. I couldn't do this before I went down to BioAccelerator. I have a torn labrum at the moment, but it's given me the ability to actually use my arm again. The spine took extremely well, the knee took well. As a 58-year-old man with so many injuries, there is absolutely no way in hell I could embark upon training for this retirement match, let alone going through with it, without the stem cell treatment.
So there's crazy things that you don't understand about a burn, which I learned when I was here. When your body is burned 90% and it's healing, the cracking can lead to infections. You have problems your whole life. Like one example, there's a guy named, they call him Crispy, okay? And he got blown up in an IED and 90% of his body was burned. Right after he got his IV here, he has a prosthetic leg. The prosthetic leg did not fit because the inflammation went down so much. So he couldn't put the prosthetic leg on. Just pretty crazy.
Oh, wow, this is awesome.
I would love to see your injuries. I would love to see if we can actually help, because we have an amazing product that is the secretome. The secretome, it's a lot of proteins and growth factors that have been released in the culture media by our cells. So it's a big concentration of many good things, many biomolecules that can help you heal injuries, wounds faster, and that they actually close. We wish that for many of our patients, but they don't find out about this information traditional doctors, they don't know about this new medicine and technology, so they don't offer it to the patients. They actually are not educated in it, so they really don't know that it exists and that it works.
The general process is they have first meeting with one of the 8 advocates. So they have a consult call. So there the physician assistants ask about all the medical history and all the information related with the actual problem. And also for that consult call, the patient have to send to her some medical records, MRIs, blood works, everything. And with all of that information, the physician assistants can do like a summary of all of that records and build a protocol of treatment. My job here is first check like the protocols for the patients that gonna come here on the clinic. So I am in charge of approve them or reject them, depending on their findings, their medical history. Then where they are here, I do like the physical examination, check their images, and then I do the procedures.
I'm one of the epidemiologists of the scientific direction, and I lead the scientific evidence-based medicine unit for the clinical team. There is a lot of evidence related with regenerative medicine, randomized clinical trials, and we have been able to do meta-analysis that is the top of the evidence and to analyze all the data. We have been able to develop 23 or 24 different guidelines that includes more than 50 conditions to treat our patients. We do a mapping evidence that allows us to see how many studies were ongoing around the world. Big companies are doing all the research to provide the evidence that the patients need to be done. All of the clinicians made decisions based on the best available evidence. And we took the evidence from everywhere, but most of the evidence comes from the United States.
As an American, I feel confident saying this, is that the truth is that we don't have the best medical system in the world. I wish that was not the truth, but you know, there are some pieces and components that are not available to US citizens. So we have to go offshore sometimes for the best treatment. You know, we spend more on healthcare than any other country in the world, and we have some of the sickest people. Our nation is really chronically ill. We treat over 100 conditions. A lot of them are rare and very specific. But if I was to put it into 3 big buckets, autoimmune disease, orthopedic issues, and neurological conditions. Spinal cord injury is, you know, some of the most severe that we treat. One of the things that I like to brag about almost is one of the things that I'm most proud about, because we treat some of the most severe diseases and injuries on the planet. And what I'm really referring to is spinal cord injury. So we have some of the worst spinal cord injury patients that you could imagine, people that are left completely quadriplegic when they come to us, and then have some pretty positive outcomes after stem cell therapy.
This is the second trip out of the four trips we're going to be making. We're from Colorado. I had a spinal cord injury about 8.5 months ago. My injury is incomplete, so I've been making some improvements and just looking to speed things up a little. It was kind of a crazy accident. It was just me and a buddy. We were hanging out after homecoming night, having a bonfire. We were just wrestling, messing around, and I kind of grabbed him. We went down, and I landed right on my neck, and that was about it.
He landed at Anschutz Medical Center, had surgery done, and we started doing research mode, trying to figure out what to do. We got in contact with the first patient out of the Mayo Clinic, which he knew through a friend of his that he plays baseball with, and we started finding out about stem cells and doing research on where we could go to get stem cells done, specifically for spinal cord injuries. And we landed on 3 different places, and this place stood out to us. Once I started talking to some people about it, I found out my aunt, who's a PA up in the Puget Sound area, she had a patient that traveled down here to BioAccelerator and had a phenomenal experience with his recovery. Had about a half-hour conversation with him, and he just raved about the recovery he had, the experience he had. So we said, okay. It really made the choice that much easier on where to go.
There's so many unknowns, You don't know whether you're gonna get better. You could be stuck in this position for the rest of your life. So I got to find out that I'm an incomplete injury, which is easier on the mind, but even as an incomplete paralysis, you could make just ounces of recovery. You don't really know. After my first treatment on the plane ride back, I could immediately feel I had sensation returning under my leg. So much so it started more as kind of like a burn, more of as like a surprise. So I had my leg propped up, and just from there it started to kind of get better and better. Started off kind of as an uncomfortable feeling, and it's grown to be more sensitive in a good way. So the uncomfortable feeling has gone away and it's more normal sensation. And I've started to be able to feel temperature, which is new, in my feet, and it's hopefully just gonna keep on improving. There's research that shows the earlier on you can start doing therapies is definitely better. Your recovery slows down the longer you're in it.
I know it seems like a pretty big investment to fly all the way down to Colombia just for stem cells when, you know, you could potentially get stem cells in the US, but the difference is the way that they harvest, grow, and deliver their stem cells to their patients is very, very different than anything that you can get anywhere else. And so I think the quality piece and the fact that they continue to invest in innovation, they continue to invest in their IP and technology, they really take pride in like how they bring their patients in, making them kind of feel like family, because, you know, when you're here, it's, you know, because you have an injury or just for longevity, like, it can be a little daunting and, you know, a little intimidating when you step into like a medical facility. The reason why I continue to come back is because I can feel the difference between before I have stem cells and after I have stem cells. Just knowing and feeling the difference, I think for me, like, speaks volumes, because it'd be different if I came here and I had no way to tell if something was working or not. But because I have better recovery when I work out, I have better sleep, I have better anti-aging, that's why I continue to come back.
If you see that, the humanity, the compassion behind these therapies, it's beautiful. For me, it's amazing.
It's actually doing good to where it doesn't feel like work. I'm grateful every day I wake up, because how can I not be?
I'm proud that we've put a flag in the ground. We're going to do it the right way, and it's not going to be easy, but you should follow us.
All of this makes me feel very happy, very passionate about it, to be able to have different ways to help people, really addressing a cause, because they have already explored many options and they have not found a solution to their concerns or to their things that they want to improve. And it makes me very happy that we are able to provide this other type of solutions, and that we are providing solutions to people's life.
It's not just a simple story about stem cell therapy. It's more a story about the truth in medicine, the truth in what's happening in the United States, the truth that our healthcare system is somewhat broken, the truth that great companies like mine that are really trying to help our community and do the right thing.
Many people can talk about the future of medicine, but it's happening right now. I mean, you don't have to wait for years.
This is not the future of medicine. This is the present right now, and we're living it.
Imagine doctors are saying you might be paralyzed, yet still choosing stem cells over surgery. It takes so much courage to really follow the science as it is, rather than whatever others claim it to be. But that's exactly the kind of courage we need in America today. The freedom to try is a key Maha principle. It's your body. And if you want to choose hope over despair, shouldn't that be your choice? I think so. There is no reason that disabled citizens of the richest, most advanced country on earth should have to travel thousands of miles south of the border to get stem cell treatment. Frankly, it's cruel. My job is to shine a light on this. Together we can fix it. I want to thank the thousands of supporters who've already purchased Maha and Censored. Thank you. If you haven't already become a supporter and purchased the full documentary, consider doing so right now. You'll also get the full list of stem cell doctors we featured today, along with a spotlight on the real science. Of course, you'll also get on-demand access to all 16 chapters of Maha Uncensored, plus audio versions of each episode, full transcripts, and much more. That's in addition to the hundreds of dollars worth of bonuses and free gifts available right now. And if money's tight, then make a pledge to spread the word. Write a post, tell a friend. You can do that for free, and every bit helps. Tomorrow, we're going to look at the 700 toxins you likely have in your body right now. We're also going to cover another highly controversial subject, supplements. If you're like me, you've taken supplements. If you're really like me, you may have an entire cabinet full of them. I urge you not to take another supplement until you watch tomorrow's broadcast. Until then, I'm Jeff Hayes, and this has been Maha Uncensored. Thank you for watching.